Now let's move into the upper half of the face and introduce the eyeball, which is usually a big moment where it goes from feeling like a dead lump of digital clay into feeling somewhat alive. So like we used separate objects for the teeth, we're going to do that for the eyeballs as well. Jump into object mode, Shift A, add a mesh UV sphere, which is like a globe. And so if we tab into edit mode, RX90, and rotate it forward, the North Pole, so to speak, is now facing forward. And we can select the pole vert, Control Plus to grow it out. And this, we can assign a material to give it an iris-like color. So we'll tab to object mode, go to the material tab, hit the plus button twice, and in that second material slot, create a new material and scroll down to the bottom under viewport display. We'll change that white color to a darker color, like mid-level gray. Tab into edit mode, and then we can assign that material. And now we've got a darker color for the iris. Right click, shade smooth, and then also Control 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Now we've got a very smooth eyeball, which we can move into position. And this can be pretty awkward. Questions like how big is the eye exactly? We're just gonna have to eyeball it. Terrible pun, I know. But we can use our artwork to get the position pretty close. But what will also make this awkward is that our face does not accommodate for an eye socket yet. And so we're really flying blind. Wow, that's another eye pun. I'm on a roll. But, don't fret over how perfect this placement is. We can always adjust it later, but we do need something to get started. So I think we're pretty close at this point, at least to being a decent starting position and orientation. So I'm going to add a mirror modifier and choose the body as the mirror object. And yeah, I think that's not going to work. We're going to need to push the eyes a little bit further in. We don't want them bug-eyed, kind of hanging over the mouth. And I did just realize I'm not naming anything, so let's do better than that. Real quick, I'm going to correct some names. And for our teeth, I can select all of them, and we have a built-in renamer. If I hit the spacebar key, which I have remapped in my preferences under key map, I have changed the spacebar action to be tool search. That is not the default, so I should inform you of that. Spacebar and rename, batch rename. All right, so we will replace or set name new, and we'll call it tooth.000 and hit OK. All right, now we've renamed all the teeth. I highly recommend working organized. It's not a discipline I'm perfect in, but definitely pays off when I do it. All right, so we've got our eyeball object, which, the more I look at it, I feel like it's always could be positioned a little bit better. Anyway, it's somewhere close. Now I can jump to the sculpture and create the shapes needed for the eyeball. That's something else to keep in mind is it's always better to go ahead and sculpt the shapes. You can always move them around later, but there can be this sense of paralysis in the beginning where I'm even experiencing it now. If the eyeball is not perfectly placed, my sculpture is going to be wasted, and that's not the case. So first thing I'm going to do in sculpt mode is take the inflate brush, hold Control, and kind of push in a socket for the eyeball, okay? So now the eyeball's sitting in some geometry. I think I need to pull in the corner of the eye a bit better. Yeah, that's already feeling so much better. And from here, we'll take the clay strips brush and really chunk out an eyelid or a brow on the upper half. So I need to push this out a lot. So just build up the shape. And then once I'm pretty close, maybe the grab brush can do the rest of the work. And this brow is going to do so much for the personality of this shark. Now, what is happening here? Clay strips is kind of giving me some issues. And I don't know, do I have a mask enabled? Alt-M. It's kind of behaving a little bit funky. Anyway, I think it's returned to normal for the most part. No, what is this? Yeah, we've got some weird stretching. My Dentopo settings seem correct. Anyway, let's switch to the inflate brush. Okay, that's working a bit better. And so, this eyebrow has a distinct kind of shelf shape to it with this point towards the interior. All right, so I want to create that from an angle that matches our artwork. And it can take a little bit of exploration to kind of get this right. Let's use the crease brush to kind of give it a hard edge up top, and then I'm going to smooth it out. Hard edge on the bottom, definitely. And then we've got a very sharp transition out of the eyelid, kind of up and out of the face. Smooth this out. Let's give it a nice sharp crease in here because, it's kind of an angry expression, menacing. And so, anger always has like a furrowed brow kind of shape to it. And I'm filling in this gap because we don't really see exactly what's going on here. We can use what we know to fill in those gaps. And if you do a brow and look in the mirror, you're going to see that crease form. All right, we're starting to develop the eye, and he's starting to feel alive. It's a big moment. I'm just keeping an eye on how the front of the eye is thicker, and then it comes down to a point. Whereas right now mine's very kind of round and bulbous. So I need to, let's see, instead of grab, because as I grab and push it upward, it's also taking the brow with it. So I think I should use inflate instead. There we go. Inflate it and then smooth out around. That's feeling pretty nice. Inflate here as well. We'll bring these surfaces together. All right, we're off to a good start here. Hold shift to smooth. And then I kind of feel like maybe I need to suggest a bottom eyelid as well. It just feels kind of weird how it just sort of ends. It's like eyeball into the cheek. So I'm going to explore adding a subtle eyelid. It's kind of implied in the artwork as well. Holding control with the crease brush. There we go. I do think that's helping kind of solidify the expression. All right, let's zoom out. And it's a start, but we're not quite there yet. I think I need to be more extreme with the brow. Kind of pulling it forward. And then the eyeball itself, maybe I made it too small. So now that I've got my shapes, I can kind of reposition. There, that's starting to feel a little bit better. From the front view, it's maybe going to look a little bit lazy eye, but that's also the nature of sharks and fish. So I'm okay with it not looking overly human from the front, as long as it looks best from the angle that matches the artwork. All right, we are getting somewhere. And I know I don't need to be overly specific at the moment. Overly perfectionistic is what I should say, because I can save that for the polish pass. But, just exploring on like different ways that I can place this eyeball. I do feel like this kind of has some benefits. Maybe that. Okay. Back to the sculpt mode, the sculpt mode on the shark mesh, the shark body. Don't want to have any penetrations like that. It looks kind of strange, doesn't it? Yeah, the eyelid does need to be sort of consistently thick, right? It doesn't make sense that it's bigger on the front and not on the sides. Okay, I think I've probably reached a point where I just sense it, where I've spent too much time here and it's not working out perfectly. So the best solution is just to leave it where it's at, take a break like I mentioned earlier, and then we'll come back later when my eye is refreshed. But there's plenty more to do on the face, like the snout and also the cheek here, that kind of very extreme shape in the corner of the mouth. So maybe I'll do that first. Let's see, I'm gonna mask it out first. And I'm gonna mask it out sort of smaller than it ultimately will be. because it's very important that we get some sharp contours surrounding it, which means it kind of needs to just be this chunk of cheek hanging out in space. Let's Control I to invert the mask. Let's switch to the inflate brush and then puff this thing out. And it's going to kind of fade off in its volume towards the middle of the body, but then on the front side, it really needs to kind of jut out. It's a very awkward shape by itself, but it's so important. Alt-M to clear the mask. So by using that mask, we kept this contour on the front side pretty sharp, and now we can kind of smooth it out. But this is so important for the expression to be finalized. And let's kind of match it up into the corner of the mouth. Yeah, that's starting to feel pretty good. Yeah, that's helping a lot with the expression. Just keeping an eye on the artwork, seeing how it correlates to the sculpture, and that's a good start. We'll finish the rest during the polish pass. This is one of those very, very strange shapes that if you kind of stare at it too long, it almost looks like, I don't know, like a growth or something. But maybe feathering out the volume a bit into the rest of the body will help it feel like it's part of the anatomy, like it's a cheek being pinched up into a smile. But anyway, that's a good start. Let's finish the snout with some nostrils. Back to the inflate brush. I love to use inflate to just hold control and kind of inflate inward and create these chasms. It's perfect for a nostril like this. And I'm going to make it really deep because it's very black in the artwork. So we want shadows to have free reign in this chasm. And then just kind of taking visual cues for contours. And that will become a crease. All right, so we end up with this sort of backwards 6 shape. So if I hold D, draw a line, that's kind of the shape we're looking for from the nostril. And we've got this sort of classic dynamic topology bumpiness and jaggedness going on. So I want to lightly smooth out these areas, holding Shift. Also the inflate brush, if we just lightly touch, kind of back and forth in between, lightly shifting and then lightly inflating. And that helps to really smooth out that area. I need to bring the snout to more of a point. And then tighten up the contour surrounding the nostril. And then hold Shift on this side. Yeah, that's starting to come along. All right, let's see kind of big picture where we're at. The nostril needs to be pulled down towards the eye. There's too much space in between. Let's inflate the nostril out a little bit more. Whoops. Undo that. Eye to inflate. Keep it nice and plump. Now, you might have noticed that I'm not switching to subdivide edges. Remember, we're sticking with the default subdivide collapse, which always perpetually regenerates the topology. And I mentioned in the dynamic topology overview that subdivide edges is better for creasing. And so far, it's not been too bad, but when we get to the polishing stage, I definitely want to use subdivide edges to make sure that all my creases are as tight as possible. But so far, collapse edges has done quite well. And in general, dynamic topology does do pretty well with maintaining details as long as you use it right. All right, so something about this snout silhouette is just not working out for me. I think it needs to be pulled kind of higher and give it a little more volume towards this like bridge of the nose area. There's also a wrinkle implied in the artwork, so I need to cut another crease this way and then inflate in between them. Oop, too strong. And that combo of crease, kind of ruined it there, but crease and inflate is my go-to wrinkle approach. All right, that's a good start. We can polish it later, but ooh, yeah, that's feeling much nicer. Ah, the personality is coming out in our shark. Yes. Okay, zooming out again, the mouth is not rounded enough. It's a little bit too flat compared to the artwork. So I'm going to pull this down, keep it fairly broad. Ooh, that's feeling much better already. Looks like the corner of the mouth sort of needs to come closer to the eye. And let's see, I forgot, I'm using subdivide edges. So that's good. As I move areas I've already detailed, subdivide edges will maintain that and not regenerate the topology. Although I'm just using grab for right now, and that does not generate new topology anyway. I think the last thing I'll do in this video is just sort of plump up this bottom lip a bit more and then inflate in between the lips. Just kind of close up. Look how weird it looks without the teeth. But with the teeth in context, I think we're achieving that illusion that's needed for this mouth shape to be believable. Let's see, I can hold control and kind of, make it an indentation so that the teeth look like they're pushing against the bottom lip. Same thing I did for the top. I just haven't done that for the bottom lip yet. That should help just, make the teeth feel like they're sitting in between two fleshy lips. What I don't want, though, with the artwork, we get a very clear and clean line. But as I inflated, we kind of get a bumpiness, and that's not what I'm looking for. So with a little bit of work, we can kind of get the best of both. So I still left the indentation, but from the right angle, I can just pull up the bumpiness in the contour and get back to that straight line that we see in the art. I also don't want the bumpiness to follow into the lip here. So, all right, I will finalize that in our polishing stage, but right now, I think we're in a good place, kind of the 3/4 mark of this sculpting workflow.